If you're the UFC champion and the #1 contender is undefeated in the UFC while the next guys in lines are fighters you've already beaten, you'd assume the path forward is obvious. That's probably what Alexander Volkanovski expected. Instead, the UFC looked at the featherweight division and said, let's do Diego Lopes again.
I'm gonna announce this for you. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. UFC 325 from Sydney, Australia.
From Volkanovski's side, this fight makes almost no sense. He already beat Diego Lopes 9 months ago, so there's no storyline payoff, there's no legacy boost. This is pure risk with almost zero return, and yet it still feels dangerous.
This is hard fight for me, I know, but now I am a different guy.
Because Diego Lopes isn't some safe rematch. He's explosive, he's unpredictable, and he's violent in the exact ways that make older champions nervous. One mistake, one scramble, or one chaotic exchange, and everything Volkanovski rebuilt could collapse again. So, why exactly do you take it?
Diego Lopes, did you think you'd put that one to bed?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, but at the same time, like, I knew he'd be back. I knew he'd be fighting for a title again. Did I think it would be straight away? No.
Especially when Movsar Evloev is sitting there undefeated, or when Lerone Murphy's on a tear knocking people out and building real momentum. Honestly, most champions would take that Lopes win and just let it age like fine wine, but not Alexander Volkanovski. And maybe that's what makes him different.
His name popped up, and you're like, not this bloke again. Like that was obviously a tough fight earlier this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously it is a tough fight, but it's a fight we know we can win. So I think I can do what I did last time, but do it better.
The rest of UFC 325 fills out the card in a way that actually makes things interesting. Ruffy Vs Fiziev versus Mauricio Ruffy is one of those fights that looks straightforward on paper until you start asking what a win actually does for each guy.
I love this matchup against Fiziev. When you were offered this fight, did you like it as well?
I always watched Fiziev fighting. I know he's a good striker, so I want to say thank you, Fiziev, to accept this fight. If I win this fight, I will be in another level.
Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint Denis also feel like classic chaos, but it's also a real checkpoint fight for Saint Denis against the gatekeeper of the division.
But he's kind of cut from the same sort of cloth, like he's a younger guy.
I mean, he's ugly. I'm definitely going to lean into that. Face like a smacked ass.
He's not that ugly.
He's pretty fucking ugly.
Make no mistake about it though, this card lives and dies with one question. Why is Alexander Volkanovski risking everything for a fight that gives him almost nothing?
Fighting Business is one of my favorite new channels going right now.
Thank you to the Fighting Business, absolutely amazing.
Ruffy Fiziev versus Mauricio Ruffy. Now look, for everyone who's already written Ruffy Fiziev off, let me remind you of one thing. Before that unfortunate knee injury against Mateusz Gamrot, Ruffy Fiziev was a very real title contender. He was riding a 6-fight winning streak, and he wasn't just winning decisions, he was knocking guys out, and that version of Fiziev, he's still out there.
What do you see from him? Whether it's the combination of speed and power, what makes him so special and seemingly such a threat to the rest of the top 15 at 55?
When I watched him, I even went and got my own coach, Clayton. I said, what is he doing? Because everything he did was at the very end of the punches. And I'm not talking about jabs and straights. I'm talking about his uppercuts were way out here. His hooks, and he was generating power, but it was all way out here. I've never noticed that about him fighting.
He's only 32 years old, and stylistically, he might actually be better in the striking exchanges here. And if you're not familiar with his Muay Thai background, this is where it gets scary. The guy has over 70 Muay Thai fights under his belt. That kind of experience matters, especially in a stand-up heavy matchup like this one. So, experience could actually end up being the deciding factor. Now, on the other side, Mauricio Ruffy is coming off a pretty rough fight against Benoit Saint Denis, where he got mauled on the ground. What makes this even worse is the fact that Benoit isn't exactly known as a pure grappling specialist, but that said, none of that changes the fact that Ruffy has a nuclear button. He can shut your lights off in an instant. That spinning kick knockout over Bobby Green, that was a legitimate knockout of the year contender.
I don't know what to say. Like, we're back here and I think everybody's jaws were at the floor when that kick landed.
Acredito que consegui. I was thinking about it in the gym. How can I impress everyone at the UFC? I believe I just got that.
Now the big question is this. Can he actually land something like that on Ruffy Fiziev? Ruffy might have the edge in raw power, but Fiziev is all about fundamentals. He's sharp, he's disciplined, and he won't be putting himself in unnecessary danger. So, landing that shot against someone like Fiziev is way easier said than done. Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint Denis. Alright guys, if you're trying to get your friends into MMA, this is probably the fight you show them. This matchup right here reminds me of the Spider-Man meme where they're kind of just staring at each other. I mean, they're both kind of the same fighter with the kill or be killed mentality, and we've clearly seen that over the last few fights. For Dan Hooker, it's not even just the last few fights, but his entire career. His 24-13 record doesn't exactly reflect an all-time great. If anything, it kind of reminds me of Nate Diaz, and honestly, that's not even a bad thing. Luckily for Hooker, the UFC still loves him, and for a few very obvious reasons. Now, the event is in Australia, and he's got an entire region backing him, but on top of that, Dan Hooker is exactly the representation of what the UFC is all about. This dude has never disappointed, and he always delivers absolute wars.
In that interview, Dan said to himself at his UFC debut in Auckland, if this guy gets to my legs and he cranks, Dan made an agreement with himself to just let it go. Like, okay, he's gonna break my legs, cool.
That said, at this stage of his career, it really looks like the UFC uses Dan Hooker as the gatekeeper of the lightweight division. Michael Chandler needed a big splash in his UFC debut. They gave him Hooker. Islam Makhachev needed a statement to earn a title shot. They gave him Hooker. Arman Tsarukyan is still trying to remind the UFC he deserves to fight for the belt. Yeah, you already know who they gave him. Hooker is a psycho. He fights like someone who genuinely enjoys pain, both giving it and taking it. He was riding a 3-fight winning streak before running into Arman, and while he's probably not elite level, his entertainment value has always kept him in big matchups. Benoit Saint Denis, on the other hand, isn't any different. Yeah, the losses to Dustin Poirier and Renato Moicano were expensive lessons, but he clearly used them as fuel. When he got back in 2025, he went on a roll. 3 straight wins, 3 brutal finishes, and at this point, his confidence is fully back.
So I learned a lot of my many mistakes I made in 2024, more intelligent and to grow again as a fighter and having fun in the process of getting a better mixed martial artist.
And so, as I describe both these guys, this fight has bloodbath written all over it. Saint Denis probably has the technical and the power advantage, and he's probably going to come out swinging. But it might take more than a few shots to put Dan Hooker away. The guy is notoriously hard to finish, and if the fight drags on longer, that is exactly where Hooker is the most dangerous. Now, if you're watching this card and you like having a little extra interest in how these fights play out, my bookie is there. You don't have to just pick the winners. You've got different methods, rounds, props. You can line things up based on how you see the fight going. If you do decide to check it out, use code TFB when you sign up. That'll give new users a welcome bonus. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes 2. As much as I hate repeating myself, I have to say it again. Diego Lopes does not deserve a title shot right now. Even Alexander Volkanovski looked surprised by this booking. He openly said he expected to fight either Movsar Evloev or Lerone Murphy next, and instead, the UFC gave him Diego Lopes.
What is next? I know Lerone Murphy's obviously one guy that coming off a big KO, so I don't know. Does Diego get a rematch?
And here's why that doesn't sit right with me. If the #1 contender was injured, or if he had just lost to the champ, then sure, I'd understand skipping him. But Movsar Evloev? The guy's on a 9-fight winning streak in the UFC. He's undefeated in the promotion, and on top of that, he already has a win over Diego Lopes. Despite that loss to Movsar, Diego has now been booked for 2 title shots, while Evloev is still sitting there begging for his chance.
Volkanovski is a legend, but he's done. Fresh blood is here, so let me prove that I'm champion.
I also get the counter argument. People will say Movsar isn't the most exciting fighter to watch, and honestly that's fair. He doesn't have a single finish in his UFC career, but if excitement is the criteria, then what about Lerone Murphy? He's also undefeated, and he's coming off a first-round finish over Aaron Pico. So where's the consistency? Don't get me wrong, I like Diego Lopes, I really do. I just think he should have been given 1 or 2 more fights, won them convincingly, and then earned this shot again. Now, that doesn't mean Diego doesn't have a chance. It's quite the opposite. Diego is incredibly crafty on the feet, very dangerous, and he has a deep finishing bag. He doesn't fight to win rounds, he fights to send people straight to the ambulance. And title controversies aside, you can't deny that the spinning elbow finish over Gene Silva wasn't absolutely nasty.
This guy's so scared, it's like because for this I'm small, okay, this fight is done, I'm finished this guy soon.
Diego studies his opponents. He has high fight IQ, he understands where his advantages are, and he's dangerous everywhere. On the ground, on the feet, all of it. And let's be honest, Volk's chin might not be what it was a few years ago. So for Diego, this fight is everything. It's about revenge first and foremost, and if he wins, he gets to wear the belt and call the shots.
I think it's different. You know, I have more recurse still for this fight. Now I'm more light. It's like I don't have the pressure. I only try finishing here with one big punch. You know, I forget like many things in this fight. You know, I just enjoy the moment. I think it is. When I enjoy the moments, like I'm the most dangerous guy in the division.
For Volkanovski, man, this is where I start to worry a little. It's one thing to be a long-reigning champion defending the belt over and over again. It's another thing entirely to be a young contender who's never held gold, especially one who feels like he has something to prove and a score to settle. And that's where this matchup gets interesting, because Volkanovski has been here too many times to count. He's faced the absolute elite repeatedly and survived all of it. He understands pressure, adjustments, and championship rounds better than almost anyone who's ever fought at featherweight. On paper, it's hard to find clear advantages for Diego Lopes. Volkanovski is a master of mid-fight adjustments, and in rematches, he's historically even better. So then, why does this fight still feel dangerous? Because Diego Lopes has nothing to lose. He's been given a second opportunity at the title. He's still young, he can bounce back from a loss, and he's stepping into the cage against the greatest featherweight of all time, which means the pressure is completely off his shoulders. And that's exactly where fighters become most dangerous. At the same time, Volkanovski is 37 years old. He's no longer in his physical prime, and he suffered major knockouts in recent years.
How much longer do you want to fight? Like, have you ever thought about that?
If I'm hanging around, it's because I'm winning. I'm keeping those them good paychecks.
Yep.
But I mean, even then, it's just like there's a limit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so I know it's not too far away. I'll leave it at that.
So, yes, all it takes is one moment, and maybe that's why this fight exists in the first place. Because when you break it down like a fan, or a writer, or someone obsessed with narratives, risk, return on investment, kind of like me, this matchup raises a lot of questions. But real fighters don't think like that. They don't calculate legacy points, they don't weigh upside versus downside. They fight the man in front of them. And that's what makes Alexander Volkanovski different. UFC 325 is one of those cards that doesn't look overwhelming on paper, but still ends up asking a few real questions. You've got Fiziev versus Ruffy, a fight that's mostly about momentum and positioning, two guys trying to remind people where they belong. You've got Hooker versus St Denis, which is exactly what it sounds like. High pace, high violence, and very little margin for error. But everything about this card eventually comes back to the main event, because the Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes rematch is an absolute banger on paper. But it raises one simple question. What does this fight actually do for Volkanovski? Another win doesn't change how we talk about him. He's already faced the best this division has ever produced, and his resume speaks for itself. The risk, though, is obvious. He's older, he's taken damage in recent years, and he's standing across from a fighter who can afford to swing freely and take chances. So when you start breaking it down like that, from a fan's perspective, a writer's perspective, or even a narrative one, the question comes back again. Why take this fight? And the simplest answer probably is the right one. Volkanovski doesn't think about these things the way we do. He's not calculating upside or timing or how a result will age 5 years from now. He fights whoever's in front of him. And that mindset, more than rankings, more than matchups, is exactly what makes this main event worth watching.
That situation I was in, I can treat it as a privilege. All the odds are stacked against me. I can go and do something incredible, do something that no one's done. Look what can happen if you push through. You can accomplish incredible things that no one's done.
Now, I know I've been complaining a lot about the recent UFC matchmaking, but that's because it's fucking valid. In this video right here, I broke down how the UFC is basically handpicking their champion. If you haven't seen it, click right here.